10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome, everyone. It's Andrew Beach, Executive Career Coach. I'm a professional, how should I say that? I help professionals communicate their value to find great new jobs faster, whether they're working or not. That makes me a teacher of self-education. I do that through effective story building, brand development, and professional networking, helping you find jobs 5 times faster. That's what they say. The statistics tell us that networking is the #1 way to find work today. And I believe you know that's true as well. Our reliance on the applicant tracking systems and our application resume may not be yielding the results that we want. So this channel, this broadcast is dedicated to you, the frustrated job seeker that might be out there making these applications and not getting any results. I'm here to answer your questions. We're coming to you live today from YouTube, Periscope, Facebook, and I'm broadcasting YouTube over to LinkedIn. So welcome, everyone. I appreciate you being here. Over on the side, you should see a chat box. It's likely over here. So if you see a chat box, go ahead and type your questions in there. They'll be forwarded to me, and I will answer those here shortly. So I want you to know that I have a number of topics, themes that came up this week, and we'll cover those, yes, but I also want to answer your questions. Join me every Friday at 3 p.m. Tell all your friends. It's free coaching, okay? I'm going to answer your questions and provide you solutions. Before we get started, a little sip of the water. Grab your favorite beverage. In fact, there's a hashtag. I think you see it on the screen. It's hashtag #RedQuorama. I've created that so I can track it easier, so that we know when your questions come in, where regardless of where they're from, I'll be able to find them. So that's really going to help me out. Thank you. Now I can get started. So some things that happened this week. There were a couple of themes that I saw this week. One was people that really had a short runway to find a job. I would call those folks in some sort of desperation mode. We've all kind of been there in one way or another when we get to a point where we're up against a wall and we got to find something fast. And I remember back in the day when I first got into real estate, I actually took a job delivering newspapers. That was not very glamorous. That was, I think it paid like $1,100 a month for 7 days a week of work. It was a contract job. And so I would get up at 2 a.m. and deliver papers 7 days a week to houses in the Beaverton area. And that was not very glamorous. The other thing I did at the same time is I worked at FedEx. So in the afternoons, sometime around 2 o'clock, I'd work from then till about 8 as I was building my real estate business during the mornings. So you can imagine there wasn't a lot of sleep going on. But today, different story. Now I've gotten out of the real estate business and now I'm into doing other things related to career coaching. So I'm excited about that, and I'm excited to share my experiences with you, having career coached now since 2005. But to answer that question, if I was in a position where I was up against the wall, I think I would be visiting places that are close to my home. Just draw a radius around your house and start approaching those companies that are closest to your house. The reason that is that's low-hanging fruit. They're close to your home. They might have an opportunity for you. They might be smaller businesses that don't have the horsepower to have an HR department. They could be retail establishments, service organizations, whatever that looks like. There's a number of different options that you can take advantage of just by walking around a radius of your home, either driving through that or perhaps even thinking about different opportunities that you can encounter just by visiting places. I know that that's not normal, and that might be uncomfortable. But if I'm here, it's the 18th of the month, and I know at the 31st of this month I don't have a job or any income, I'm going to take the next thing that comes along. And that doesn't mean it's permanent, but that means it's good enough for now. So some of the things to consider would be any kind of service jobs, looking at taking your resume with you, getting to a hiring manager, not just dropping it off at the front desk, seeing if you can actually talk to somebody who manages the place, demonstrate your professionalism, of course, and maybe take a, what else would I take with me? I'd probably take a folio, something to write notes in, so I could follow up with those people. Because it might be you leave it at the front desk, yes, and they say that person isn't available, they're on vacation, they're busy. Great, who is the right person to follow up with? And it might be that person at the front desk doing the hiring. Funny how that works. But and I've seen statistics on this. I think it was in Dan Miller's book, 48 Days to the Work You Love, that I would call it a knock and talk. You're just knocking and talking with companies. Is about a 40% return on investment. That's much better than online applications, which is about 1% to 2% return on investment, even in this market. So go ahead and approach those companies. Often you drive around, and I see help wanted signs everywhere. And so if I need income, I'm going to go find it. So it really depends on your motivation. I had another gentleman that I coached. He was on H-1B visa. He had roughly 45 days after being laid off from an organization to find a job, or he'd lose his sponsorship and have to leave the country. That was his circumstance. Now, the rules and such might change, but that was his situation. And I said, you need to look at a nationwide search. You need to be considering every opportunity that involves sponsorship, and you need to talk to 150 people. Now, I didn't coach him. I offered him that free advice, and he went and did that. He found a new job, I think, in 21 days. So in about half the time before he would be headed out of the country. It comes down to the people you meet. Going and meeting people does not require an application resume. Going and meeting people doesn't even require a LinkedIn profile, although it does help because you get to see the people that are most valuable to you and to your future on that platform. And they get to see you as well, yes. But the idea is, hey, this is like the yellow pages meets the white pages, folks. This is an opportunity for you to meet somebody and make a contribution, not ask them desperately for a job. So your approach is going to make a difference. And holding that concept, that idea at arm's length is going to be challenging. Don't get me wrong. Going and networking with somebody about employment without making it about employment is hard. It takes a lot of nuance, a lot of practice, but I make it easy for you. I have a couple resources that are free, don't cost you anything. They'll be down in the show notes. They're related to the networking checklist. There'll be a networking checklist, and then I think I have another resource on the podcast called The Anatomy of a Networking Conversation. To make your networking that much more valuable, take a look at those two resources. And I'll put links to that down in the show notes. So that's the desperate job seeker thing. The other question, or at least the theme that came up this week, is I've been working with a lot of international clients here in the Pacific Northwest that are either, let's say, from India, maybe China, other parts of Asia, maybe even Eastern Europe, or parts in Latin America. And what I found is when English isn't their first language, it's difficult to communicate their value appropriately. And that can be a challenge. So there's a number of things that I would suggest, or at least recommend, if you're in a position where you're having a tough time landing those interviews, you're having a tough time converting those interviews, and you don't know why, okay? So there's a number of reasons why, but not the least of those is trust. So if you feel like you have good relationships with the hiring team, that's a number one. You could screw up the whole process, but if they trust you and they think you can do the job, you're getting hired. And that's something that has to come long before the actual interview process. I encourage you take the time to build relationships with friends, with alumni, with people you met at a networking event. Maybe it's a meetup, maybe it's a job fair, whatever it is. Keep track of those people, reconnect with them, stay engaged with other people, connect with them on LinkedIn, connect with new people on LinkedIn. Make this a rhythm, a rhythm. If you can meet one new person a day, how hard is that? That's just bumping into somebody at a coffee shop or sending a LinkedIn message. Okay, just something to stay engaged with the marketplace. So that's the first thing. Regardless of where you're from or what language you speak, the relationships really do matter. And having solid, trusting relationships with hiring managers is critically important to your success. So that's the first thing. The second thing I recognized is there's probably communication that happens staggered, meaning if your language is secondarily, let's say Spanish, and you have to convert that to English and then communicate it out, that's hard. That means it's going to take more energy for you to communicate. Not only that, if it's hard for me as a native English speaker to understand you, it's going to take more energy for me to process what you just said. So don't think that you have to fill the air with your own voice. Take your time, maintain eye contact. That's critically important, especially in America. It demonstrates respect. And so you show respect to somebody in America by looking them in the eye. In other cultures, that's not the case. And so that might be very uncomfortable. So looking in the eye is a good thing. If you get to a point where you don't know what to say, stop speaking. Okay? Often I see people will start, see how that works? Is they'll start stuttering or saying a word, a filler word, a nervous tick that distracts the audience. Just being quiet is probably a better strategy there. That's the second thing. The third thing is word choice. There were a number of situations this week. One was, it wasn't a speech impediment, but it was certainly, this person happened to have a lisp. And so when you have a lisp, the S's are not good words to choose. So if I'm saying strategic, if that was the word I was trying to say, but it doesn't come off, or maybe it's distracting to the audience, I need to use a different word. Maybe it's tactical or mission-based. Well, it's got an S in it too. Anyway, wrestling with those word choices is really going to make a difference in you getting to the next level. Practice your answers. Again, the thing is, if a native English speaker is probably going to need to practice for an interview, maybe 6-7 hours, practicing your answers out loud, you're probably going to have to double that. So as a non-native English speaker, you're looking at 10 to 12 hours verbally practicing your answers. That's going to help you be extremely effective. What questions do you have? Leave them in the chat. It's right over there. Okay? Not a problem. What questions do you have? Use the hashtag so I can find those questions later on. I'm happy to do what I can to answer them. And sometimes the chat through the Restream, which is the service I use, doesn't go across platforms, so I have to cross my fingers and hope it works. But right now it looks like it's only broadcasting to YouTube. We'll work on that. Whether it's a LinkedIn or Facebook, just leave the question down below. I'll go back and review those questions when I get a chance after the session. So go ahead and leave those questions down below. So the next thing with interviewing that I think is really, really important is, I think I said the practice. So the practice would be the next one. So the trust, don't fill pauses or things where you're trying to think with any kind of words or noise. Just be quiet. And then good word choice. And then practicing out loud more than anything else. It takes a lot of time, energy, and effort for a non-English speaker and an English speaker to hear, non-English speaker to speak, so that you have good communication. Good. So that's interviewing when English is your second language. If you have any questions about that or need further support, just leave a question in the chat or in the section down below. Update. The podcast, jobseekersradio.com/listen. Jobseekersradio.com is where I put my podcast. If you want more information on that, go to that website. We just posted last week the 12 things you should never put on your resume. And so I think you'll get a kick out of that. Go check that one out. And then this next week, we're going to release a new episode. It's called the 9 Things Not to Do on LinkedIn. I've been on LinkedIn since it started, and this is a fun kind of podcast episode to help you understand some things about best practice on LinkedIn. So if there's any questions, leave them down below. I did want to give you another update, and that is I'm actually launching my course this next week. It's based on my 3 steps to career success formula. And I wanted to let you know that it's going to be open for enrollment starting next week. And it's one of those things where you're going to have a chance to get in at the ground floor. Now, I don't like to do marketing on here, but I do like to make you aware that there are resources and tools available to you that are very affordable to help you learn the branded networking process. By branded network, I mean you understand you first, you understand the audience, the market second, and then you go talk to people that have influence in your career. Influence meaning hiring managers for the type of titles you're seeking. And I have a whole process that's around that. And I came out, I think one of the prior FAQ Fridays that we had was I was looking for a name or a phrase or a title for this. So I wanted to make sure I have this correct in my database here. So here's what I decided to call it. It's Finding Jobs Fast Without a Resume. And I think that's maybe a good course title for the first time around. So if you're in a position where you want to find excellent, great, perfect jobs fast without a resume, then this is the course for you. I'll leave a link to the website down below where I will be having a wait list that you can join and be notified when that comes available. It'll be very affordable for what's being offered, by the way. And then I'll probably do a webinar either next week or week after that kind of describes what that looks like. So if you have any other questions, put them in the chat. Antics with Avery. I tell you what, that dog is super smart. We have her going through obedience class right now, and we had a little competition on Monday night. I'm competitive, but the dog did a really great job. It's amazing how food motivated she is because she did all the things. Virtually, she was successful at everything she did. We'd been practicing some things, but anyway, I'm really proud of her. She did really well, but she still has this habit of pulling things into different rooms. It's really funny. She'll grab a shoe and take it into another room. She'll grab, a sock and take it to a different room. But she's not chewing as much anymore. We've gotten her plenty of toys, and she seems to know what's in bounds and what's out of bounds. So, all right, let me check the chat to see if there's any additional questions. All right, folks, have a great weekend. I hope you do well in your search for whatever it is you're looking for, that you find a great opportunity, a great job, or great career of your choosing faster.